It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my line mates, Devin Little and Evan Sabourin. Just recording a few hours after the game today against the Vancouver Canucks, and looked like it was going to be a loss for a bit, but another comeback win, overtime win overtime penalty shot, which was basically a shootout. Jake Walman scoring the game winner. So, Evan, how's it going?
Good, man. That was a fun game today to come back. It's, I don't know who does the scheduling for the NHL, but that's just too long of a break for me. That was what, Vancouver's third game already coming off the bye, the All-Star break, and Red Wings are just playing now. So you could see the rust out there. Patty Kane looked really rusty to me, but it was good to get out of there. I was happy with just to getting a point at first, but that was an exciting game. It was something that we needed, and it was great to hear the LCA crowd chanting Alex Lyon's name. I thought he came up with some really big saves today, and he continues to exceed all expectations that this team had for him. And I don't think anyone saw him playing this many games, let alone being our go-to guy. But it was a good game today. I don't like the got pushed around a little, but we fought back, and it was good stuff.
Yeah, it was an exciting game. It had some physicality. There's some playoff atmosphere. A few scrums after the whistle. Fight. Alex DeBrincat fighting there. I always like when a guy like that fights because smaller guy but doesn't back down. So that was something. Devin, how's it going?
Yeah, it's been a long week without hockey, hasn't it? Without meaningful hockey, at least here in Red Wings land. But yeah, like you said, Evan, a lot of fun watching that game. That's one of those games where if you don't have a rooting interest, that was a fun game to watch. And it was a roller coaster if you did have a rooting interest in that game, like the folks on this show. Excited to be back. Excited to talk about some Red Wings hockey.
For sure. Yeah, it was a good game to come back. Early start. I don't like those early starts. It depends on how both teams play, and that's probably where it came from. So, it was a good game though. Really back and forth. Team got up to Canucks got up by 2 in the second period, and then the Red Wings come back in the third, and really good game to watch. All right. Well, before we move on to our first segment, our good, one bad, got to remind everyone of our Substack here at the Hockey Writers. It's a great free newsletter you can get 3 times a week, and there's also the premium tier that gets you awesome stuff like game day previews, prospect reports, lots of other fun stuff throughout the season. So check that out in the link below. It's great Substack we got there. All right, one good, one bad, and there was a few things you probably take from this game. There wasn't any Red Wings games for the week, so you're probably going to be taking from this game. All right, so we'll start with you, Devin. What is a one good, one bad from this one game week for the Red Wings?
One bad is honestly just kind of piggybacking off of what Evan said there towards the end of his opening, where we had one game, we even had to delay our show a day to have a game to talk about. That's a long time without hockey, and I'm sure the boys in red enjoyed having extra time off and being able to spend time with their family and whatnot. But at least they got a win tonight because if they it would have been miserable to have gone that long without a game and then they come out and just came out flat. So good to see a win after a long break like that. But my one good is going to be actually DeBrincat at the All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
I know we kind of dunked on the All-Star game all of last episode, and I still don't really. I mean, there's not much behind this. DeBrincat played well, and who really cares? But he did play well. He had 3 goals, 6 points. For my money, he was the MVP, no matter what the crowd in Toronto wants to believe. And he did it in front of his young son Archie, and then he had his newborn Maverick, I believe, the day after. So, congrats to Alex and his wife and his family, really, on an all around successful and fun weekend.
Yeah, it's been a while since that. It's been over a week now. Well, actually, a week today, if you're thinking about it, for the All-Star game. So yeah, he had a good game. We talked about it last week, and couldn't score in this game. It's coming out, but he was prominent. He did. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, he did get into a fight. I got uppercut there at the end. He was going up a pretty much bigger guy, of course. Most guys are bigger than him, but he didn't back down, which is great to see. Right, Evan, over to you. Good and a bad from this past week.
Well, first off, is it just me, or every time I see DeBrincat get hurt or in a fight or whatever, the first thing I think of is that kid Archie? I mean, is that kid not adorable or what?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, I hope he's not seeing this. I don't know how they explain that to little Archie, but yeah, that was really interesting to see DeBrincat getting in there with one of the big boys. But no, my good came from Lucas Raymond today, and I got to put more hand sanitizer on because that first goal just made me feel filthy. I've been putting it on all
Yes.
day. It really was. That was just an amazing, nice little move down low, and his touch on the puck was top notch. And he got banged up today. He had to leave the game for a little bit, but he came back. He got smashed again, obviously when Zadorov hit him. But he came back and laid a couple hits himself and really fired back, and I like to see that. My bad is, right off that, I'm still seeing these Red Wings getting pushed around a little bit. We saw Larkin get hit. We saw, the two Raymond hits. I want someone to get in there, man, and get some gloves on these guys. They can't be taking liberties with our best players. And that's a thing I think that's maybe something that can be addressed at the trade deadline, but I didn't like seeing that. So hopefully, they can build off this win. We got another tough test on against Edmonton on Tuesday, but beating one of the best teams in the NHL right now is really fun, especially in Quinn Hughes' backyard. That was they cut to the Hughes family like 30 times a game when they play in Detroit, whether it's Jack or Quinn or the other freaking Hughes, Luke. So yeah, it was good. It was good stuff.
Yeah, it like I say, it was a good game. You got Rasmussen scoring against his hometown team as well. He's from Vancouver here, so nice deflection, go right under the bar. That third line I thought was pretty good in the game again. They were in the zone a lot. As someone that covers the Canucks, I was starting to say, "Oh, that third line, my gosh!" All right, and that line was good. Raymond was pretty good. Yeah, he did get pushed around a bit, but yeah, I agree. That goal was really nice. Really early in the game, too, a minute in or less than a minute into the game, got the Red Wings rolling. And then I'd say a bad is Filip Hronek. Looked like he could have been the hero, and for the Canucks, and he had 3 points in the game, right out of the box, scoring that breakaway goal. We all know Hronek was here for a number of years. He was drafted by the Red Wings and came back and showed that he's still a really good defenseman. So Hronek.
I had one more bad really quick. It is that early start that made us push back this the time of our recording, because I was in full gritty for Zator. I was doing the full gritty, and I've lost the rhythm and the momentum now, and I can't do it. Because I was ready to just start this recording early this morning doing that, but I can't dance and I don't have any moves. So. But I was feeling it earlier.
Yeah, well, Jake Walman, he's been really good for the Red Wings since he came over from the St. Louis Blues, and it's a great segue to move into our first segment to talk about Jake Walman, because, as I say, he's turned into a top pairing defenseman. Plays a lot, and paired with Moritz Seider a lot of the time. And really was under the radar when he was acquired. I don't think everyone was like, "Oh, Jake Walman, the Red Wings got Jake Walman. That's pretty good." I don't think anyone was thinking that. They're like, "Okay, we got this guy." He was actually part of a bigger deal with Nick Leddy, and Leddy's not here anymore. So, and Walman's turning into the bigger part of that trade. I'll start with you, Evan, on this. He did score that penalty shot goal, won the game. He is the leading. We talked about him being the leading goal scorer, leading point getter for defense. Is he Yzerman's best acquisition since he's become GM?
Well, he's definitely got to be up there as one of them when you consider what players were moved in that deal. It was what Nick Leddy and Luke Witkowski, and what was it
Mhm.
sort of another pick came our way or something. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I guarantee St. Louis wants a redo on that one. You know, he's been everything and just like everything and more that they expected or didn't expect. So I'm a huge fan. I don't know if I can say it's better than bringing DeBrincat here. You know, we only gave up Kubalik and Sabrango in that one, and Kubalik still he's getting benched on a last place Ottawa team. You know, he's getting scratched. So you know, there's another trade too I'll bring up too is when they traded up for Sebastian Cosa, and I know Devin loves that guy and the way he's been playing. I listened to his interview this week on the Wing Wheel podcast, and he's God, if he turns out, and if you know if this kid shows up in the future, that could be a big one too. But you can't deny what Jake Walman has brought to this team, the energy. I guess he said after today's game he's gonna there's some gritty T-shirts he's gonna do up and make for Boys and Youth Foundation. It's gonna earn money for some things for them, and that's really cool to hear. Yeah, he brings energy, the excitement, you know, the gritty. Everyone's doing the gritty now because of him. Opposing teams hate it, but you know, it's our thing now and we love it. So yeah, it's definitely up there. But yeah, it's the DeBrincat trade's still hard for me to beat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Walman's been well. I mean, like I said, during that trade, Leddy was the bigger name, and
Right.
think about Walman being, like I say, he's the bigger name now. He's turned into a really good part of the Red Wings and was just re-signed too. So he is part of this team for a while, and I think he'll be much even further from his contract he did just sign. Devin, what about you? Is Walman Yzerman's best acquisition, or you got someone else in mind here?
Well, first and foremost, I just think Walman really fits in with sort of the atmosphere that the Red Wings are trying to cultivate in terms of their team and their game experience. You've got a, team that when they score on home ice, you hear na 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 over the ice, and then when Jake Walman scores a big goal, he hits the gritty. Like there's a lot of there's a lot of showmanship and kind of some finger pointing when the Red Wings do things this season, and it's kind of fun to watch. Let's be honest. And that it's another layer of like other teams that are visiting Detroit, just going, God, I hate these guys, right? Wellman just fits in right there and does that. Um, Now, is he the best acquisition Yzerman's made? It's interesting to think about because you can kind of attack or approach best in a bunch of different ways, right? I think DeBrincat's the most talented player that Yzerman's gone out and acquired, and like Evan said, they didn't really give up much to get him. They gave up an extra first round pick and a couple of extra players, really, right? And they got a bona fide top six winger, who's from Michigan. They can
Mhm.
market for the rest of his career, basically. That's a big acquisition. I still go back to the Robbie Fabry deal because he traded Jacob Delarose for him. They
Yeah.
quite literally turned nothing into something. Um, that's just like the Walman deal is like really good because you didn't expect much from Walman and they turned into this. But they still gave up Nick Leddy to get him. Like Leddy, say what you will about Leddy, but like he did have value. Jacob Delarose is not even in the NHL anymore, and
Yeah.
they turned him into Robbie Fabry. Like that's a really, really good return on investment. Um, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that Walman's in the conversation for sure. To get a top four, top pairing defenseman, whatever you want to classify him as, for an aging veteran defenseman that you knew wasn't part of the long-term picture, and a draft pick on top of it. That's a good deal. And it seems like this is the year that we're really seeing Walman like cement himself as like a true go-to defenseman for this team. He's tied for third in league scoring among defensemen. That's I think he's really flying under the radar in terms of that alone.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of people out there could know him as like the gritty guy, because he's done it a few times this season. But there's a reason he's done it a few times this season, and your local Red Wings fan can tell you why.
And those things you brought up there too, with the Fabry deals, and it really speaks to Yzerman's, talent for finding this kind of talent, these under the radar signings, because these guys are guys that the type of players that you need when you go on a playoff run. You know, that it wasn't big headlines with Walman or Fabry when we made these moves, but when you look at what they've turned into and what the players that Yzerman gave up turned into, I mean, it's a robbery. That's why that's my favorite meme. I have it somewhere. I'll try to find it for the end of the show, but it's Yzerman on the phones and stay calm. This is a robbery. They always put that up when they're talking trades, because he obviously has a keen eye for talent. There's no doubt in my mind about that, and I don't think any other GM in the NHL would disagree. But yeah, some of these moves have they've really paid off in a good way for the Red Wings.
Yeah, he's like I said, there are a few of them. That's good to be able to pick a few that you could classify as the best acquisition that Yzerman has made, and there are a lot of them. And Walman is up there for sure. At DeBrincat, definitely. That Fabry one was, like you said, Devin, that was a pretty big one. Because Fabry's been a really big part of the Red Wings since he was acquired too, and De La Rose is nowhere to be found in the NHL anymore. So yeah, great deal there. Lots of stuff you can kind of go for. All right, off the rush, and I'll continue on this vein a little bit, and I'll start with you, Devin. The trade deadline is coming up here. Do you see one of these types of trades happening again? And it can go a different way. Evan talked about toughness being added. Do you think that is something that Yzerman should be going after at the deadline?
I think if there's one thing that the Red Wings really could use, it is just in a perfect world, they would add like a Matthew Tkachuk type of player. Now that player is definitely not out there. But if they could get a player like that, I think that's kind of like the missing piece for them, is just somebody who combines top six skill with just the ability to like drive the opposition nuts. It's like I said, a Kachuk player. That's literally the prototype I'm thinking of. If I'm gonna like name a player that they could realistically get, I think maybe like a Lawson Krause from I think the Arizona Coyotes. If they decide they want to sell, they're kind of in a weird spot where they could just kind of ride out and see if they make a push. Western Conference is kind of weak, but that would be the type of player that I think hits or checks those types of boxes for the Red Wings.
Yeah, probably wouldn't require a ton to acquire. I mean, Krause is a pretty good player, but I don't think they'd have to give up a first round pick or something like that. Maybe a second rounder. Who knows? I'm not sure what their value is, what Coyotes classify as value as. So we'll see. Evan, what about you? Do you see some type of deal that Yzerman could make to add some toughness, or more of an underrated deal? We're not looking at it right now as a big one, but could turn out to be a big one.
Well, here's where I'm going to get killed for this, and I did write an article a couple weeks ago on this, but we're missing that Tyler Bertuzzi type player. Not exactly Tyler Bertuzzi. He was such a polarizing figure here in Detroit, and people either loved him or hated him, or there was the whole vaccine thing and this and that, and who knows what went on behind closed doors with him and Yzerman and the contracts and all that. But we missed that agitator. I think every team needs one of those. When you think back to all of the big playoff runs and all that, there was always that guy that we had to get under someone's skin. That Brad Marchand type, the guy that everyone hates or whatever, but he's going to get in there and do the dirty shit. And I think that's what they're hoping Carter Mazur will turn out to be eventually down the road here. But as far as the trade deadline, it's again, first off, I got to show you that meme. I love the meme so much. And there it is. Stay calm. This is a robbery. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. I mean, it's off to a good start. The trade deadline's less than 3 weeks away? Is it almost? I don't even know what the date is today.
We're a little over a month.
Actually. Just over a month. So, another
less than a month.
Red Wings got another big road test here. So, again, after January, though, maybe if they go on another heater, maybe Yzerman does make some moves. I don't think he's going to do anything big, though. If it is something, it's going to be low key. It's hard to say if Lawson Krause is available. I'm not. Arizona's a much better team than they have been in years past, but definitely a guy that I'd like to have. I doubt there's going to be a reunion with Bertuzzi, although Toronto would love to get him off the books. He's not really doesn't appear to be working out. It looks like the fan base is kind of turning on him there in Toronto. But yeah, I mean, if there's someone that right player out there for the right price, yeah, Yzerman can go after that. But I think it's got to be something low key. I think another maybe a little bit more skilled and a grittier Klim Kostin. Klim Kostin's he's that rough sandpaper that we need, but he's a fourth line player at best to me. But yeah, I'd like to see them add some grit here because I don't like seeing these guys pushed around. I mean, whose heart didn't drop today when they saw Larkin get hit from behind again and saw him laying on the ice? I mean, I was ready to fly back to Detroit and do something. But it's no, it'll be interesting to see these next couple of weeks what goes on. But I guarantee it's in the back of Yzerman's mind that they got to add some sandpaper, a little more sandpaper than they had previously thought.
I don't know why this name comes to mind right now. Is Jordan Greenway from Buffalo Sabres. He's got size, he's physical, a little bit. I don't know if he's not very injury. I don't know if he's injury prone. He's been injury prone, it seems like, the last few seasons. But I'd say I don't know what the Buffalo Sabres want for a guy like that, but I see him being a pretty good bottom six type winger that could be a physical presence for the Red Wings too. So yeah, keep an eye on what Yzerman will do. He may not do anything and see what this team is good enough. So we'll see around the deadline what he does. All right, before we move on to a couple questions, returning to our comment corner. We haven't had a comment corner in a while. So before we do that, got to pay the bills and talk about our Substack here at the Hockey Writers. It's the Red Wings Substack we got here. Lots of great content you can get in your inbox every 2-3 times a week, or the free version. You also have the premium tier, which is game day previews, prospect reports, specialized articles, lots of fun stuff there. And you also get access to all the other content on the Substack as well. In the premium tier, you can see prospects, hockey history, general news and rumors, lots of fun content at the Substack. So check that out in the link below. Okay, let's move on to our comment corner, and we got a couple frequent flyers, I guess you can call them. Paradox Destroyer, we'll start with you, and he asks if keeping players like Jonatan Berggren and Simon Edvinsson in the AHL, which is where they are right now, is talent mismanagement. We've talked many times about Edvinsson. He should be up here. He should be playing in the NHL. Berggren played last season in the NHL, hasn't played much here throughout this season yet. I'll start with you, Devin. Now, because you put out a Griffins notebook not that long ago. Do you agree with that? Is it talent mismanagement to keep these guys in the AHL for so long when they should be up here competing with the Red Wings?
It's such a tricky thing because, obviously, as we've kind of gone on this show many times, we do agree that both of these specific players could be in Detroit right now. They're good enough, and you could definitely make the argument, I would say, especially for Berggren's sake, that they don't really have anything to learn in the AHL. They don't have anything to prove. And at that point, what's the point? You want these players to reach their full potential, and at some point, in order to do that, you have to take the next step. But the wrinkle has to be accounted for here is that it's not just about individual development, and it's not just about what's best for the Red Wings. They do want the Griffins to have a good season and actually have a decent make the playoffs and then be like a threat in the playoffs. You remove Berggren and Edvinsson from that team, that's a big blow, and it's not going to be easy to replace them. In fact, I dare say it's impossible because those are that's a top 10 pick and then an early second rounder that's basically at a point per game pace in his time in the AHL. Good luck replacing that. And then because you're doing, then you take from Grand Rapids, you remove those guys. Then you have the Albert Johanssons, the Carter Mazers, the Cross Hannesses, the Marco Caspers that are in Grand Rapids that you do want to still go on that playoff run. And then they just lost two of their very best teammates and arguably their best teammates. You're kind of screwing them over in that sense. So it's tricky. I think on an individual basis, it probably is talent mismanagement. It's time for these guys to play in the NHL. Berggren, it's still mind-boggling to me that Berggren even started the season in the NHL after he played most of the season in the NHL this last season. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's also what's best for the entire group and being able to have a playoff push not only in Detroit but in Grand Rapids too. And you're really hurting the Griffins' chances if you take away arguably their two best players.
It's very true. I mean, you want to keep a winning culture down in the AHL as well. You don't want them to be losing all the time. It is a tricky balance, especially with the team that's in this realm of playoffs in the middle of kind of a playoff team and also in a rebuild-ish. I mean, it's really weird. It's a weird situation that the Red Wings are in right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all kind of plays out in the next season or so. When our next question, we'll talk a little bit about that. Evan, what do you think about this? I know we all know you want Edvinsson up here.
I do?
Yeah.
I never said that, did I?
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, Devin brings up a great point about that. You know, with the Griffins playing well and a good core of our future is still down there. You know, it is a meaningful thing to have these guys gel down there together for when they do come up, because at some point you got to think Casper, Mazer, Edvinsson, Johansson, they're gonna be a part of this future. Waylander, Kosa, you know, so it is valuable for them to kind of grow and mature together, and hopefully, you know, get some success, and then, you know, have that translate hopefully into the NHL, because they're probably all really close to the same timeline.
Mm-hmm.
The greedy part, or the part that, you know, as fans want, you know, we don't no one cares. I mean, they care about the Griffins, but we don't, you know, it's the Red Wings. Simon Edvinsson should be up. That's not a question. I still question some of these offseason moves, and I still think if Yzerman could go back, I don't think that whole trade or the whole signing happens.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like we talk about over-ripening prospects, and Edvinsson's definitely overripe. My thought process here on Berggren is this. I think one of two things is going to happen at the trade deadline. Either Berggren's going to be moved out for a high-end asset. I think he will command a high-end asset. He's had enough sample size in the NHL to show that he is a very effective offensive player. I think either that he's going to be moved out or someone's going to be moved out for him, because it's well known about his frustration in Grand Rapids about why he's not up here. And I believe I listened to some other interviews this week that are saying that, yeah, you know, he's pretty frustrated. I did like, you know, they got a little chippy fight down there in Grand Rapids the other night, him and Edvinsson. And I don't know if you saw the shootout goal Berggren had last night, but that was filthy too. Hold on, let me get my hand sanitizer. Okay. Yeah. So it's gonna be, we're gonna find out here very soon, I think, what their long-term plans are with Berggren. It's just right now there's just not a fit in the lineup for him. But if he can be moved out for a valuable asset, I don't think Yzerman would hesitate, because you can't just keep a kid like that down in the minors for that long. Edvinsson's obviously in the long-term plans. There's no doubt in my mind he's in the starting lineup next year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's already played 90 AHL games. You know, Zator only played 50. You know, Raymond didn't play any. So there's something in their mindset what they want to do with those young guys down there. But yeah, it's a little frustrating, but I think we're going to find out really soon here in the next couple of weeks what Yzerman's long-term plan is as we head into the deadline.
Yeah, I could see Berggren getting moved even if they are in that playoff picture. I don't think that's something that you're saying, oh, he's selling or he's doing anything like that. It could be for just a pick. It may not be a fair player. Who knows? That's something definitely going to be on the radar for fans to keep an eye on for sure. All right, this one could be a quick question, quick answer. Lord Venom asks, when will these spots start opening up? I mean, a lot of these players are on these relatively, I don't know if they're long term, they're more the 2-3 years. Could be that timeline. Evan, what do you think? When will this start happening where you're going to start seeing these spots not be filled by free agents?
Well, like, as I just said, Edvinsson, he will be up next year, and he'll probably be starting a second pairing role, obviously. Berggren, we're going to see here at the trade deadline. Casper's another one that the better he plays, the harder he's going to be to keep down the next 2 years. So I definitely think they're going to get in some games towards the end of the season, but I think Yzerman's might in some way balancing the amount of games played because he's going to have some entry level deals to contracts and stuff to worry about at some point here with all the talent we've been acquiring over the past 5-6 seasons with our high draft picks. It's going to be time to pay the piper, obviously, with Raymond and Sider soon here, and they're not going to be cheap deals. And I think we're going to get a taste of them towards the end of the season. But I think next year, definitely next year, I think Edvinsson's on the team. I could see a scenario where Casper makes the team. Carter Mazur's probably not that far behind, but Berggren's just hard to tell with right now because you just don't know if he's just going to simmer down there and what the attitude's going to turn into, and if the Red Wings just want to get him out to get him an opportunity to play because he's not getting it right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little iffier on him, but I think we'll see some games out of Edvinsson and Casper before the end of the season. And maybe Berggren too, if he's not traded. So
yeah, it'll all depend. I think even, on injuries could happen and open up some space. But when you're in that playoff mix, it's like you don't want to pull out other guys and put these guys in. It's tricky. Devin, what do you think about the timeline on these prospects? When will they be able to get these permanent spots in the NHL?
I think Evan made two really good points. One being that next season you're going to start to see guys start to move in. Edvinsson's will have we'll have an answer on Berggren. I'm confident about that for sure. You'll see Mazur, Casper, Hansen all pushing for jobs, and maybe they get games, maybe they don't. We'll see what happens. But I think the second point, and this is where this is kind of the answer to the question, I think. They're gotta have to start paying people. Sider and Raymond are getting big paydays. And yes, the cap is going up, but it's only going to go up by so much. And as you're increasing and adding to your list of big money contracts, cap space goes down. And so to offset that, you have to have players that are on low number entry level contracts, and that's where you make room for your kids because they're on those cheap deals, and that's where it makes most sense to. That's where you're going to maximize their value just in terms of not only their play on the roster, but also their fit in the grand scheme of building a roster in the modern day NHL. So there's going to be some players that force their way there because they're just too good to keep down. But generally speaking, I think they're going to kind of allow themselves to sprinkle them in as they just kind of can't afford other players on the roster.
Johansson's a really interesting one too, because he's 23 now.
Yeah.
He's a good defender. I don't know if he's going to amount to much offensively, I don't think, in the NHL, but he's another guy we don't talk enough about, but I'm hoping he is part of the long-term future, but he's also a guy that if they want to move for something bigger, he's a name that he's a talent and he's known. So
yeah,
I hope
that's going to be interesting to see too. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next season or so for our prospects for sure. All right, there's another episode of the Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. Thank you, Devin. Thank you, Evan, for coming on the show again. We'll talk Red Wings. We have a few more games to talk about coming up. So, but
we're running out of time here. Do I have time for a gritty?
I disappeared. Yeah. Until next time, we'll see you on another episode of the Grind Line.